The Susan Brender Show is a radio show online broadcasted on YouTube across the United States and globally. The show features guests who speak about health, spirituality, entertainment, and a host of subjects to enlighten people across the nation. Listen to the show that empowers women and men alike and highlights those who have made a difference.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. Today, my guest is Renee Balcom. Now, Renee is an interesting woman, and she's been on my show before, and I'm telling you, what she does is just incredible. So I want to introduce you to Renee Balcom. Now, Renee, you spent more than a decade consulting and providing services to families looking for care solutions for their loved ones. Now, let's just start with that. How did you get into it?
Well, first of all, Susan, thank you for having me back. It's always a pleasure to have time with you. And to your question, I started out, actually, I was a CEO of a technology company in Silicon Valley. And through a series of life events, I found myself in the adult care industry and realizing that there were just a lot of really big gaps in services and accessibility to services. And so literally, I mean, I don't believe in coincidence, but just one client at a time, I found myself on this journey to being a healthcare advocate. Frankly, at the time, I didn't even know what a healthcare advocate was. I didn't know that career existed. Eventually, within about 5 years, I had 39 employees serving 5 counties in Southwest Oregon, and was eventually invited by the Governor Kitzhaber, the governor of Oregon at the time, to come to Portland and write the scope of work for healthcare advocacy and work to get it as a certified career, a state certified career. So it's definitely been a journey, but it's one that's so fulfilling and one that I love. So thank you for asking.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Now, here's the thing. You went to the governor and you sat down and you started planning. Now, give me step by step of what happened, how you got this to really work.
Well, at the time, there were several different types of advocacy groups that were starting to foster. The community health worker is one, healthcare advocacy is one, the birthing doula is another. And all of these careers, professionals add services and very personalized services and assisting people in navigating through the care system that they're in. And so we sat down, the state wanted to have a certification program and bring this curriculum into the colleges. And so, we spent about 3 years actually as a group. I chaired the group for 2 years. But we spent a few years writing the scope of practice for all of those job descriptions and getting it through the state government and getting it sanctioned by state government. So in Oregon, those jobs are all certified careers. Now in California, which is where I live, you don't have to have a state certification to be a healthcare advocate. So every state has their own set of rules and laws. But we are seeing there is a national program now to certify nationally. So we are starting to see momentum at a national level.
Now, we're talking today about actually veterans, and we're in a very difficult time, with Russia and China and all of those places. And I'm just wondering how the veterans are doing, because you need to assist them, because many of them have PTSD, they have all kinds of issues. So how do you advocate for them?
Well, let me start by, I want to share with you a little story in my work with veterans. As I mentioned, I was living in Southwest Oregon in a small county called Curry County. And in Curry County, we had a large group of veterans living in Southwest Oregon. It's a beautiful coastal area, but we didn't have very many veterans benefits at all. And so I was invited by one of the veteran service organizations to become certified as a benefits writer for the veterans in Curry County. it was interesting because there is a process, and I hope we can talk about that a little bit today about what that process actually looks like. But a little bit of a feather in my cap. Back then, I received a cease and assist letter from the Veterans Office out of Roseburg, Oregon, telling me that I could not provide assistance with veteran services. And I call it a feather in my cap because to be able to get that kind of visibility, right, then I was doing something correct. I was doing something right. And what ended up happening, I don't know if you remember, but you remember a few years back when this whole big incident came out into the public about veterans officers that were stealing money and stealing benefits and all of that and kind of mismanaging veteran services money. So, and the very person who actually wrote the cease and assist letter to me was one of those people. So I've always looked at that as a success for myself, that I was doing such a good job that someone tried to get me to stop. I also want to let the audience know that $270 billion a year is allocated through federal funds to veteran services, veterans benefits, and veterans health. And so, and with that said, I want to encourage every veteran to make a point of pursuing their benefits. And hopefully we'll talk about what that actually looks like as we go on.
I'd like to, I'm going to stop you here. You mentioned that they get certain benefits and you want to describe to them and help them understand how they get the benefits. So how do they get the benefits?
Okay, great question. So what we have to remember is veterans is there's two different organizations. And it's a little misleading, as is unfortunately many government websites. But if you go into va.gov, you assume that you're being addressed or you're addressing all the Veterans Benefits Program, and that's not true. We have VA benefits, and then we have VA health. So if you want benefits like a pension or aid in attendance or a housing loan, you would go through the benefits part of the VA. But if you want veterans health services, you go to VA Veterans Health, VA Health. So I just really want to make certain everybody realizes that. Oftentimes people find themselves muddling through benefits, assuming that the veterans health is in that compartment, but it is not. So you had asked earlier about some of the veterans today and getting them services. Yeah. I think it's important that, as I mentioned, every veteran would pursue their benefits. They worked for those benefits, and they also have benefits for their families that because of the complications of accessing these benefits, oftentimes veterans don't do the work or get assistance in doing the work. And I just really want to encourage that. We have seen veterans health increase mental health benefits and behavioral health benefits for these guys that are dealing with PTSD and some of the other maladies of war, some of these young families. And they also will provide benefit services and health benefit services to your loved ones and your family members. So,
Renee, let me ask you something before you continue talking about the benefits. Many people say that if they go to the veterans hospitals, they don't get the treatment that they need. And there's usually a lack of staff to help them. And, I'm just wondering why that's the situation when they're getting so much money poured into them. Now, has anybody ever come up to you, one of the veterans, and said to you, I want, I'm entitled to getting benefits from the hospitals. I could go there, I could get, because many of them are disabled and they want to get all kinds of things for themselves. And it's unfortunate, but it's very difficult. Do you agree with me or not?
Oh, no, I agree with you completely. I have worked with veterans and I've been in the hospital in the emergency room with them, and I've seen the neglect towards them. I wanted to share with you about a client that I worked with who just passed away recently. His name was Gary, and Gary had served in Vietnam, and he, was entitled to benefits, including aid in attendance and entitled to a pension. But Gary woke up one morning and one of his eyes didn't open. And so his daughter, Gary's daughter, is a nurse on Maui. And so he spoke to her, and she had heard about me through someone else that I had served a family that lived in Maui, and heard about me and hired me to assist her dad in navigating through VA health. And so Gary had, ordered a taxi and gone to see his doctor at Veterans Health. And she basically sent him to the emergency room after waiting, right? She sends him to the emergency room. He goes to the emergency room. He waits 8 hours. They run him through a gamut of tests, and they give him some drops and send him home. And even the taxi to the VA hospital cost him like $37 to get there and then get back. It was another $37. So it was quite expensive for him to even get this looked at. But they basically just poo-pooed him. Well, his daughter was really concerned. Maybe, something really serious was going on, and she wanted him to have help. So I came alongside of Gary. He was an amazing, amazing man. So charming and just so soft-spoken and just a beautiful person. So we went back to his doctor, and once again, she sent us to the hospital for tests. So we went, took the journey, went to the hospital, sat there for several hours. And I have to tell you, Susan, it was criminal to see the neglect towards the veterans sitting in that hospital all those hours. And unfortunately, the older veterans get treated the worst. The younger ones come in, they get a little bit more care, I think, because their energy is very different. The older ones, and especially some of the ones that are, some of the World War II veterans, or some of the veterans that are really do have disabilities, were not treated well. They were neglected, in fact, so much so that I filed a complaint. I also was compelled literally to go from room to room to room and give these people my card because it was so shocking how neglected they were being. Now, every medical system is shorthanded today. We see that, and it's going to continue to be that way. We're seeing more and more practitioners retiring out and leaving, and more specialists leaving. So the VA is not going to be any different. However, I believe people need to be honored no matter what your problem is. I think honoring these men and women is a part of the work of veterans benefits and veterans medicine. And even from the moment we walked through the door, the person at the front desk didn't want to raise their head and even acknowledge that we were standing there. And everything along the way just got worse and worse and worse. Finally, we did get a specialist after many, many hours and Gary had gone through a huge battery of tests again. And after many, many hours, they brought a specialist in on a tablet, right? And she was asking him questions. He was answering her, and she said to him, "I don't believe you."
She said, "I don't believe you?"
Yeah.
Yeah. And as an advocate, how did you respond to that?
Well, I turned the camera to me and I said, "I'm sorry." I had already introduced myself to her. I said, "I'm not understanding this line of conversation." And she said, "Well, I don't believe what he's telling me. I don't believe he can't see, or that he can see out of that eye." And I said, "Doctor, we've already gone through tests. We know that he can see out of the eye because I've already tested his sight." And she said, "Well, I don't believe it." So I literally, and I'm a bit of a rebel, so turned her camera, walked it over, and faced it to that red thing in the room that says hazmat material here. So all she could see was hazmat material here. And I asked for the floor doctor. And I said, "Doctor, this appointment's over. We'd like to be discharged." And he said, "Well, no. She wants to finish examining him." And I said, "No, she's rude and offensive. And I'm not going to sit here and allow him to be treated that way."
That is the really advantage of an advocate. And I think it's so great that you were there, because if you weren't there, who knows what would happen. But what I want to talk about is the homeless. Many of them were homeless after they got out of Vietnam, or maybe the Korean War as well. But let me tell you something. If you look around and you go to every state around the country, you see them all over the place. but do they realize that they're entitled to disability and to different kinds of health care?
I understand that when they're discharged, they're told about their benefits. However, I also understand that no one sits down with them and says, let me help you with these documents. Let me help you in this process. And you take an individual that's been in combat or whatever their circumstance is, and suddenly put them into a battery of documents that they need to fill out and forms they need to fill out. Not many of us would be eager to do that. Now, I have heard, although I have not had this experience, I have heard that that process is changing. So if anyone out in your audience knows about that, firsthand or has knowledge of that, I'd definitely be interested in hearing what may be new with regard to customer service and processing benefits. But historically, imagine you're coming home for the first time or you're being released, from your service, and someone hands you a big stack of papers and says, hey, if you're interested, skim through this, right? Most of us are not going to be too responsive to that process.
That's right. It's such a bureaucracy. They make you fill out all these papers, and these people are suffering, and they came home from the Army or from the Navy or from the Marines or any one of the military, and they say to themselves, what am I going to do now? Mm-hmm. And there's no family left. And so they're all alone. And how do they get in touch with you? But I'm going to ask you that at the end of the show, but we're not ready. So what I really want to know is it very important to get a healthcare advocate to get benefits? Because without somebody like you, how do they do it?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because there's 3 really important points that I want to make certain leave your audience with today. One, as I mentioned, VA Benefits and VA Health are 2 different organizations. So don't get those confused. If you want to see a veteran's dentist or a doctor or a psychiatrist, you will not find them under VA Benefits. You have to go to VA Health. The second one is, how do you get help? And there's a couple of different approaches. One is every county is supposed to have what's called a Veterans Services Office. And in the VSO, Victor Sam Operator, Veteran Service Office, there are specialists that work for the VA. And oftentimes they're military people that are there to assist you in navigating through the benefit system and the healthcare system. So check in with your VSO. There's also accredited claims agents. So the VA actually will accredit a claims agent, make certain that you are getting an accredited claims agent to assist you if you don't have a VSO to assist you. And you can find both of those under va.gov. You just put your zip code in, and that'll direct you right to where you need to go in your area. And then there are also veterans attorneys. Now, I also want to make a point to let everyone know that it is against the law for you to be charged, for a veteran or a widow of a veteran or their family to be charged to fill out a VA application. There are a lot of people that are out in, the services groups in various communities that are trying to exploit veterans and helping them do this work. And they're charging them from $3,000 to $10,000 to have the application completed. And it's absolutely against federal law to do that. So if someone tries to charge you, then they're breaking the law, and that is not the person that you need to help you.
Okay, so what I also want to know is, when a veteran comes home, they get all their money and they get all the treatment that they need, but they're married, and unfortunately, after a couple of years, they die. Okay, mm-hmm. I mean, this is very cynical, but I need to ask this: if the spouse or the children are left, and they have nothing, are they entitled to the benefits of their husbands or their wives?
Yes, depending on the circumstances of the veteran's discharge, the time that they served, the age of their dependents. There are many, many, many times there are benefits for the wife and the children. and any adult disabled children as well.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is that when people are unaware, and most people are unaware that they have those services, and you're an advocate, do you give talks? Have you written a book? What have you done that has really given the information that the families need to know where to go and what to do?
I have not written a book on this subject specifically. I have spoken about it quite a lot just to assist people in directing them in the right path and trying to help them avoid some of these people that are out trying to exploit them. The biggest thing that I do is I passionately feel as an American, I want to honor the people that have served our country and the families of the people that have served our country. And so for me, it's really more of a benevolent work. If I can help someone, then I want to help them. And certainly, as you said, the VA is a bureaucracy. And so and it really frustrates the heck out of me. I mean, we could go into the whole political side of this if you want to, but It just frustrates the heck out of me that the very people who served are being, mismanaged and misled into benefits that they serve for. My son is 30 now, but I remember when he was in high school and, the veterans, they came and the military came to the high school to talk to them about the wonderment of serving in the United States military and the lifetime supports that they would have. And I told my son, that's a bunch of bunk. That's not even true.
Right.
I said they look for every reason not to provide you with the very services that they tell you you're going to receive. So, and I'm not saying someone shouldn't enlist in the military. I'm just saying that I believe that everyone should have the facts and understand the truth.
And you were talking about the political situation that goes on with regard to this situation. I'm talking about the veterans. I don't want the whole story because it's going to take us a long time to get through it. But on the other hand, why do you say that it's political? I want to understand that because I agree with you. It is political. So the question is, what is the most important thing that we have to know that is so political that the people have to wait online, they have to wait for everything, and they don't even know what they're entitled to? So the question again, what is the political situation surrounding this issue?
I think the federal funding for VA services it's in the top 5 items on the national budget. And I think that both parties use that money and use that power and that control to sway those votes. I think that we know most service members are reasonably conservative. Frankly, I think most Americans are reasonably conservative. However, a lot of these monies are used to support some of the fringe political agenda of some of the far left and the far right. And they're not serving, the regular Joe that actually went into the military. And I feel like, again, both parties uses this line item on the budget as part of their political agenda. And it's not, to me, it's not fair. Again, these young men and women all the way up until their 90s now that serve the United States in the way they were asked to serve should be taken care of. And I don't think it should be a political agenda. It should just be a matter of fact.
Well, Renee realizes that overwhelmingly family caregivers need a mechanism to quickly find appropriate and professional solutions. From this realization, the Silver Lining Network and the directory was born. I want you to tell the audience, if you will, what is the Silver Lining Network and this directory that you have?
I'm in the process of developing an app for, the consumer to be able to go into the app and access local services, just like the VSO I was talking about, your local vetted services for everything in the care spectrum. So everything from hiring someone that's going to come and walk your dog to someone that's going to take care of grandma everybody in the care spectrum. And we're working on the app right now. It's going to be released probably in the summer by late July. And I'm really, really excited about it. All of our providers are in your community. They're all vetted providers. There's 100 focused providers in each community that we're launching in. And so when you access the app, you'll be able to access someone that's right in your county and right in your community.
I also want to know, and I'm sure the audience wants to know, how they get in touch with you and how they find out what you're doing to help their families. So tell our audience how to get in touch with you, if you will.
I will. Thank you. I'm Renee Balcom, and you can find me at Renee, Renee, at Renee, Renee company.com. My website is reneecompany.com or silverliningnetwork.com. And the last thing that I want to make certain that your audience is aware of is the aid and attendance pension that's available for our aging population. And the rules and regulations changed on that starting in January of 2022. We actually had an increase. And so there's benefits for spouses, for the widow of a veteran, for married veterans. And these benefits can go all the way up, tax-free benefits up to $39,000 a year. So definitely go into either your computer and Google aid and attendance, and it should come up. When for sure, reach out to your veteran service officer about that pension.
Well, my guest today has been Renee Balcom, who has experience with veterans, assisting them, and also she obtains all kinds of information that she can share with the people who hire her as an advocate. And advocates are very important because many people do not know where to go, what to do, how to do it, and she helps them do it. So thank you very much, Renee Balcom, for being on the Susan Brender Show.
Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you, audience. I'll look forward to hearing from you again.